This podcast presents information based in part on theory and conjecture. The host purpose is to suggest some possible explanation, but not necessarily the only answer to paranormal phenomena. We have not yet begun to touch the surface into these supernatural occurrences. With that being said, welcome to the Paranormal Journal.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Journal. Thanks for joining me tonight. Glad you guys been tuning in, downloading. Like it, love it, share it, put it out to everybody who's into the paranormal. You want to listen to a good podcast about paranormal things, real investigations, talking with real clients, talking with real investigators all over the world, all over the country. They're going to be on this show. Trust me, they're going to be on this podcast. And tonight's going to be no different. We're going to have a good guest on tonight. A real good guest, folks. Barry Conrad, yes. Barry Conrad. Many of you don't know who he is. He's a famous videographer / paranormal investigator. He has investigated one of the most famous cases with poltergeist activity, and that's the San Pedro Haunting. He was directly involved with this case. A lot of things happened to him and his other cameraman, Jeff Wheatcraft, during this investigation. I've talked to Barry Taff about this investigation. He was involved with these guys as well. It was his case. I think he believed he passed it on to those guys, and all three of them were directly involved with the case. And Dr. Taft talked a little bit about the San Pedro Haunting, not as much as Barry Conrad is going to talk about tonight. He's going to go in depth about a lot of the things that happened in that case. And in that house with Jackie Hernandez, with Jeff Wheatcraft being hung in the attic by an unseen force, which I cannot wait to hear these stories. Unfortunately, Dr. Taft was talking about a lot of other different things, which was totally awesome. But he couldn't really get into the whole details about the San Pedro Haunting. He touched base on it a little bit, not as much as I'd like to, but this guy is going to bring it to you. He's going to tell you the truth about what happened in that investigation, and I can't wait to get him on. I'm going to get him on a hook here in a few seconds, and he's going to tell you the story about the San Pedro Haunting. So stay tuned, folks. Don't go anywhere. Barry Conrad is coming up.
Hello.
Hey, this is Barry.
Is this John?
This is John. How you doing, Barry?
Hey, John. Good. Glad to get your call.
Yeah. I was fiddling around with this Bluetooth thing. I couldn't get it working. I was like, what the hell's going on with this thing?
Got it to work.
Yeah, I got it working. I was like, here we go. Testing out new equipment is never good.
Oh yeah. Are you in Pennsylvania? I saw your call coming from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, yep, from Pennsylvania.
What part are you in the Philadelphia area? Or?
I'm about 2 hours from Philly.
Oh wow.
Yep, in the York area. About 40 minutes from Harrisburg.
Yeah. I've been to Philadelphia and Gettysburg. Did a thing there one time. Did a talk there, so it was good. So,
oh yeah, I live like probably about 20 minutes from Gettysburg.
Huh.
Yep.
I'm originally from Ohio.
Okay.
From near Cincinnati, a little town called Fairfield, where I grew up. It's by Hamilton. It's about 20 miles north of Cincinnati. So, so I miss that part of the country, Midwest. Out here, it's been right now it's really overcast. It's raining a little bit, which is unusual.
Really, it's raining, huh?
Yeah, we need rain. So anyway, it was good to talk to you. Now, this was for the podcast for you have a paranormal show, I assume, right? It's a paranormal.
Yep, I do all paranormal stuff like UFOs, cryptids, hauntings, stuff like that.
God, I love all that. I love all of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, me too. I've been hooked on it since I was a little kid. I had seen a UFO one time when I was a kid, and I was around 15. Seen a UFO, and I've been hooked ever since. Just with everything, just paranormal stuff, UFO stuff. It's
yeah. Well, I actually am been editing a project that I shot 20 years ago. Right now, my girlfriend at the time, she had passed away, and we did 2 UFO programs called Monsters of the UFO that were we sold as DVDs. My other shows were on television, but I don't think those were on TV. With the but there was one I did on Mothman in Point Pleasant, where I grew up, not too far from there, a couple hours from there, and I remember all that going on. But I had a lot of the interviews with a lot of the original witnesses who since passed away now. So I put it together. Actually, it's really almost done. I just got to add the narration with my VO guy, and so dealing with that. But it's going to have some good stuff. So it'll definitely has some interesting stuff. There was a guy who his name was Merle Partridge. He was the guy who had the dog. If you heard that story about he had a dog that was barking incessantly, and then their TV went on the blink. And I think that was the same. I believe it was no, it was the night before. I believe when they had the first car chase, when this cryptid chased this car with Scarberry and his let's see, Roger Scarberry, his wife Linda. I interviewed Linda, and then there was Mary and Steve Mallet, and it was the night before, and his dog ran out, and then his TV sounded like an old army generator, like gearing up, like making real high pitch sound, and his dog disappeared, and there was a UFO hovering over, or like a red light hovering over that field. So there was a strong UFO connection to the Mothman stories.
Yeah, that's a very interesting case. The Mothman. That was. I love the movie that they made. With Richard Gere in it. That was very interesting movie.
Yeah, there's interesting on the movie. It's been a while since I saw it, but they had the bridge collapse, and then the Silver Bridge. And the interesting thing about it was that they never showed the part where the tie into the UFOs, as I recall. Although it's been a long time since I've seen it, but there was a ton of UFO phenomena and Men in Black and all that kind of thing going on at that time in that town. And have you been there to Point Pleasant?
I haven't. I actually want to go there. I have family that live in West Virginia, and I've always wanted to go there. Never been there though.
They have it's right on the Gallup Ohio border, and every year they might. I'm not sure if Jeff's going to work in it. They might run my documentary this September at the festival at some point. And but they have I know this big Mothman Festival. They started it in 2002, and actually, I think I was there for the first one. I went back for it, and I interviewed. You remember Rosemary Ellen Guiley? Did you ever have her on your podcast?
Yeah, she was on the same radio network as me back probably 15 years ago on Para X.
Yeah, she was a good friend of my ex, and I know when she came out to the West Coast, she stayed here, and I interviewed her back there at the time about it because she would give a talk about it. She was amazing. I think she wrote like an amazing amount of books. It might be like almost 100 books or something. She wrote so much.
Yeah.
She was really prolific, God. And then unfortunately, she's passed away now.
Yeah, she passed away a couple years back, I believe.
A couple years back. Yeah, I went to a memorial service for her in Hollywood.
Yeah, really nice lady.
Oh, extremely nice. Really knowledgeable on all that stuff. I can't believe how much stuff she had written. So she wrote the first. Well, I didn't. I think I would just say one of the first really thorough books called the Encyclopedia, I believe, of Ghosts and Spirits or something like that. And it was thick. It must have been, I don't know, at least 1,000 pages. It was big book, very thorough, inclusive and stuff. But it was really an incredible book. But yeah, I was sorry to hear she passed away. I was at a memorial service for her. I guess she had cancer or something. But
yeah, I was actually surprised too. I had seen it on TV. I was like, wow, because she was doing that. What's that TV show that's just on now? The Paranormal Caught on Camera.
Was it? Oh, was she on that? Yes.
Yeah.
She would do little cameos on that show, I believe.
Yeah. And I think they had dedicated a show to her, and I was like, "Oh my God, Ellen died! I couldn't believe it." I was like, "Wow."
Yeah, absolutely. But so I guess you wanted to talk about the San Pedro case, right? It was the case that you said you had.
Oh yeah, Yeah, I've been following that case for years. It's very interesting. I talked to Barry Taff probably about a month ago about that case, and
Yeah, we've been in touch in emails. I've talked to him on his email quite a bit. So
well, yeah, you have
so
talked to Barry Taff.
we haven't talked on the phone, but we've communicated over the emails for the most part. And he's living kind of hand to foot now. He was like, I guess his parents had passed away, and he ran into some financial difficulties. He was in he told me it was down near the Temecula area or San Diego, and I think he's living in a hotel or something down there. But I need to hook up with him some point and see what's going on. But did he talk to you about the San Pedro case, how it all transpired and all that, or?
Well, he kind of went into it just a little bit. He was talking about a lot of other different things, and he didn't really touch base on it in detail about it. And I said, well, I'd been following the case for years, and I said, well, I'll reach out to Barry Conrad and see if he can elaborate on the case a lot more because I read things about Jeff Wheatcraft being attacked up in the attic and things like that, and Dr. Taff said that a lot of things had actually happened to you as well throughout that case.
Yeah, I did. It's interesting that the fact that you mentioned it because, um, you know, that thing was like, you remember he did the Entity story that
Yeah.
became the movie, and that was before I came out to California. That was in '74, and it was with a lady named Doris Byther, and Doris was, I guess, followed by this thing, and just like it became more or less a have ghost travel story, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And in this case, in the San Pedro case, well, my background was in news, and uh, I've always had an interest, kind of like yourself. I've had an interest in the paranormal ever since I've been a grade school kid, really. And then I got in the television industry, working in TV news in Cincinnati. I used to work with George Clooney's father, Nick Clooney. I was his cameraman back
Oh,
there.
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was at the ABC network station affiliate, WKRC, not to be confused with WKRP.
Oh, since the TV show, what was it? I remember that when I was a kid.
Yeah, with Lonnie Anderson, and I forget who else was in it, but I think they borrowed the call letters, except for they added the P from that station because we had a radio station there at the
Yeah,
time.
I think one of the actors to that show recently just passed within like a year or so. The
It might
blonde
have
haired
been.
guy, I forgot his name.
Yeah, it might have been. I'm not sure, but that was where I worked. I started out in TV news, and then I worked there for several years. And then in '80, a producer I worked with went to Denver, and then I got a call to go to Denver. They needed a film camera guy because they had uh, just kind of converged over to video, and I was learning video, but when they were still shooting film out in Denver at the KWGN television station. Then I worked there for about a year or so, and then got another opportunity to go to NBC affiliate there at KOA at the time. It was KOA, and then became now I think it's called KCNC TV. But that was my background. So getting back to the haunting stuff, it was like I said, had an interest in the phenomena since you remember that Fate magazine.
Yes.
I think that was the first thing that kind of caught my eye. But growing up in Ohio, aside from some of the publications I was interested in reading at the time on the newsstands, it was we had a lot of UFO sightings in Ohio. And then in 1966 or 65, one of those years, I believe, well, right around that time, they had there was a Colonel Coyne. I forget his first name, but Colonel Coyne was a military chopper pilot, and up over I forget, somewhere in northern Ohio, they actually had an encounter with a UFO that came up over the top of their chopper, and all their instrumentation went out, and it started sucking them up towards the chopper. And then it released them finally, and all their instrumentation came back on. I don't know if you remember that story or not, but
I do remember that. Yeah.
yeah, that was a coin that was in Ohio, and then we had a lot of stuff. And just above in 1966, which is interesting, it's the same year as the Mothman sightings began. We had this huge Michigan flap at Hillsdale, up at Hillsdale College, and then it wound up being seen in these objects were being seen at Ann Arbor, and they sent J. Allen Hynek up there, who, as you know, was Air Force consultant on UFOs. And unfortunately, at the time, Project Blue Book and places like that were keen on diffusing, trying to tamp down, reports of those and try to get more plausible explanations. I guess they were trying to avoid panic. I'm not sure why they were doing it, but they sent Hynek up to diffuse it. And he really didn't get a chance to do much of investigation. He was up there only for a couple of days. And I know he interviewed Frank Manor up there, who he and his son had a farm. He had a farm there, and his son witnessed, both he and his son witnessed a UFO land on the property. And since it was a little bit swampy, some of the property, Heine gave this he was rushed into a press conference. And that's when he had all these people and what's going on, because there were police witnesses that actually photographed UFOs up there too. Although you don't see the photos that much, I have a copy of them somewhere. And then he declared that it was probably, although he said he couldn't make a statement in a court of law, but he says probably swamp cats, and that's why he took a lot of heat, over the years, because swamp gas obviously doesn't accelerate into the air from the ground that high up. It usually stays, within a few feet above the ground. You can get a kind of a phosphorus glow from vegetation. It's a state of decomposition, that kind of thing. But that was that whole swamp gas thing. But that was, like I said, Ohio was really a hotbed of a lot of things, and we had the right after, I think, within 2 weeks after this Michigan flap, and it was a flap because there were so many sightings. There was an officer named Deputy Dale Spar in Portage County, Ohio, and he and his assistant were checking out an abandoned car or something. It was like 2 a.m, and this object rose up out of the woods nearby, and they chased it, and they chased it all the way across state lines into your state, into Pennsylvania. And it finally just shot straight up and away at a blink of an eye near the Pittsburgh airport. Normally, they don't think they're supposed to go across state lines, but they did chase that object across state lines that night. I don't know if that rings a bell, but that was that same year, right after the Michigan flap. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, the UFO phenomenon is quite amazing. I know the one that I seen when I was a kid I was blown away. I lived in Baltimore my whole life, and I'm just walking down a inner street, inner city street, and just happened to see this blue light, above this really big oak tree. It was probably a couple thousand feet above this big oak tree.
Oh, wow.
And made no noise, but it was kind of like, I think it was moving, and I kind of caught it out of the corner of my eye, stopping. And I had just happened to look, and I'm reaching. My cousin was with me, and I'm around 15, and I'm reaching over to my cousin. I'm glad I never took my eye off of it, because I would have never seen it accelerate. And it was out of sight in like less than a second. It accelerated probably thousands of miles from a standstill to thousands of miles. It went in less than a second. I just seen the direction it went in, and it made no sound. It just went, and it was gone. I was like, oh my God. And I was with my cousin. I was like, did you see that? He's like, I didn't see it. I was like, it just happened so fast, man. I said, if you would have if I took my eyes off of it, it would have just been gone, and I wouldn't have known what happened to it. But I actually seen it accelerate. I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God, there was like something out of Star Wars, dude, when it went into light speed, I was just like, oh my, it was just unbelievable. And from that
Yeah.
point on, I was blown away.
What year was it about? You remember what year that was? Was
I
it
was 15. I'm almost 50 now. It was 15. That was around 90. No, around 80, 88, 89.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just curious. Yeah, I was just curious. Yeah, that was in Baltimore. You said
Yeah, it
Baltimore.
was in Baltimore. And what
Oh,
was weird was I told my father about it. My father said that's really weird because when I was he said when he was a kid, he seen a UFO in my neighborhood as well. He grew up in the same neighborhood. He said we seen a UFO when I was a kid. He said, and actually, when you were a baby, we had something happen at the apartment that we lived in. We lived in a row house, and
right.
my mother and father said they had woken up around, I don't know, it was around 1 o'clock in the morning, and
Oh,
the outside was like uh, completely illuminated in this ultra bright light. They looked out in the alley, and it looked like my mother said it looked like daytime, and there was this vibration in the house, like the whole house was vibrating, like just
oh
this
wow.
low, like emanating, like my dad said it wasn't a helicopter. It was something else, some kind of craft. Like he said, it was definitely probably a UFO. And what
Oh wow.
he said, as quick as he said, they were looking out the window and it just went, and it was gone. No more
Like that.
noise, no more light, nothing. It was gone. And he said the
Hmm.
seen the same thing when he was a kid. He said he'd seen this craft, him and his friend, going above a row house, and it was a small, sort of. He says about the size of a Volkswagen Bug,
Yeah.
and it was going from kind of like house to house, real slow. He said, and
Wow.
got to the end of the block, and it was just gone. He said they ran up
Wow.
there, and it was gone. Yeah, and it's just a weird neighborhood because a lot of people in the neighborhood die from like cancer and things like that, and people that have never like smoked or drank cigarette, smoked cigarettes or drank or anything like that, and they're dying from like liver cancer, lung cancer, really
Wow.
weird things that people have never done any of that kind of stuff or dying from like cancer in that neighborhood. Really, and it's really weird.
Yeah, it's interesting because in that Mothman case, a lot of people. I know John Keel, who wrote that book. Mothman Prophecy. I think his girlfriend died of a strange cancer. My girlfriend actually died uh, of myeloma cancer at age 42, and she started getting sick when we were out there on the road where the first sighting took place on the dirt road out there.
Oh wow, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was really tragic. She died quite a while ago, 2006, and she lived for a few years after we were out there. But we always thought that was strange because we had a few really weird phone calls that came here
Really,
out here in California. She was getting these weird, cryptic kind of voices, metallic sounding voices, and I think I have some of them, one or two of them on a recording somewhere. I have to find them, but
oh wow, I'd love to hear that. That's
and you
creepy.
wonder if that's some kind of a tie-in, something to do with, in that I think in that John Gere movie, that they did, I think he was getting a lot of strange phone calls. They built that up too in that movie.
Yeah, something like Ingrid Cole or something like that, I think it was something like that to that
Y-
voice. I think.
yeah, that Indrid Cold character. Indrid Cold is interesting. The whole thing at that time in West Virginia seemed to kick off in an area called Parkersburg, which is, probably a couple hours from Point Pleasant. And there was a guy named Woodrow Derenberger. Does that ring a bell, Woodrow Derenberger? Do you remember that case at
Yes,
all?
yes.
He was in a panel truck, like a pickup truck or something. And I think it was kind of a rainy night, and he was coming back home. And actually, he was a shoe salesman, as I recall. And he was coming from Ohio back to Parkersburg. It was in near Parkersburg where we had the encounter, and there was a UFO that I guess his car stopped, and it hovered above the car off the shoulder of this road. And he said that there was a character that stepped out. I guess he looked human, but he had just a kind of a grin, kind of a Cheshire cat grin or something. And he said that, he asked some different questions like, where he was from. He said, "Oh, I'm from Parkersburg," and he goes, he acted like he didn't know much about it. He says, "What's that?" It was a city, people had to do business there, and I think when he asked him who he was, he said his name was Cold, Indrid Cold, and he was obviously not from around there, I guess. But there was a story that the object took off. I mean, he reported that the object, he walked away from it. And the object took off, said, "We'll be seeing you again," or something like that. But that's sort of kicked off that whole phenomena of the Mothman. It's not that it had anything to do with it, but it was interesting that happened. Just I think within 2 weeks before November 15th, 66. That's November 15th, 66 is when the car chase happened, when the two couples were in the car and they spotted the creature by the old power plant. And they never really called it an insect. What they called it was like a winged birdman. It looked human. It had, pretty powerful looking legs, and it stood about 8 to 10 feet tall and had glowing red eyes. That was the thing that really scared them. And this creature, well, they turned around quickly on the road to get away from it, and it just stared at them at first, and then they took off, and the creature followed them, and it flew over 100 miles an hour because they were going at speed, and it went straight up over the top of them. And then it's interesting that it started that whole thing, but I think that's where that cold comes from. It was from the person that Derenberger said he saw that came out of this UFO. His name was Indrid Cold, whatever that means. We thought that was interesting.
I tell you, that's some really creepy stuff. I know I'd
Yeah,
be scared to death driving down the road and something's keeping up with you, flying above your car, and you're
yeah,
doing 100 plus miles an hour, and there's something that's keeping up with you. That's pretty scary.
yeah. And then again, John, is that it was a area. Okay, within that year span, the from December, let's say November 15th, 66, exactly 13 months to the day later, on December 15th, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed. That spanned Point Pleasant and Gallipolis, Ohio, over the Ohio River, and it was filled with Christmas shoppers and people like that because they used to go over to a place called Tiny's across the bridge to shop at a Gallipolis grocery store. I guess they had good bargains over there or something, but it was filled, and I think 46 people uh, crashed into the river. Their cars went tumbling down into that icy cold water. It was really cold at that time. I was a teenager, and I remember that water was cold. I
I can't
remember
even imagine.
it would have been cold because it was cold where we were. We were just 2 hours away, and it was just freezing. But 13 months to the day that that first encounter with Mothman occurred, November 15th, 66, the bridge collapsed. And they never were able to prove it conclusively, but there were two truck drivers that say they witnessed the Mothman roosting up on the upper spire of the Silver Bridge the night before it collapsed. So I interviewed Marcella Bennett as part of this new documentary that I did years ago. And she was a lady who encountered it firsthand the night after the car chase. She saw it. She was with her brother Raymond Walmsley, and they were visiting a friend named Ralph Thomas out in they call it the TNT area because they used to manufacture dynamite out there. It's right outside. It's part of the McClintock Wildlife Preserve. It's right outside of Point Pleasant. And they were going to visit a friend of theirs, and the guy wasn't home, but his children, I guess his children there was there, and as they, I guess the brother started walking up, he was ahead of her, and she's just turned, happened to notice a figure, like a gray, shadowy figure of a tall person, but then she noticed it had wings, and it was leaning against the car, and she was so freaked out. She had her baby Tina in her arms, and she actually dropped her baby, and she had a lit cigarette, and she was just like hypnotized by the glowing red eyes of this creature. And then her brother came back. The creature was gone to get her, and she got up finally and picked up her baby. The baby was okay, and got into the house. And they saw this creature come up through and look into the windows. They could see the glowing red eyes staring at them with the kids that were in the house.
what's really amazing about that story. Yeah, I've been doing paranormal investigations for over 20 years, since 2000. Uh, I've done a lot of cases, around the probably around the 1,000 mark, maybe.
Yeah.
And in a lot of the cases, kids were seeing this black thing with red eyes. And in one case, I had the mother and father were seeing the same kind of thing right outside their son's bedroom. It was they actually thought someone was trying to break into the house, but they seen these glowing red eyes outside the window, and they called the police. And the police came, searched the area, nothing. But then it wound up advancing inside of the house and coming out of the closet. And we went in this. Yeah, we started investigating the case, and it was insane. Actually, it was a lot of kind of like poltergeist activity going on. Just the first initial case that we investigated, they had a door off the hinges and it was leaning against the wall. And she has her back to it, and she's talking to myself and another investigator. And we both witnessed the door fly off of the wall and just comes over and hits her in the head, pins her to the floor. And, she spills coffee all over me. I'm like, oh my God, I got coffee in my face. And we go to, I'm trying to help her up and get the door off of her. And it felt like there was like a 400-pound weight on the door.
Oh my God.
And we're like, we couldn't get the door off. And all of a sudden it freed up. And it was like one of these really cheesy doors that you can lift with like one hand, like a cardboard door. And I looked over at the investigator I was with. I was like, that just felt like there was like the door was like 400 pounds. He's like, that was really weird. And, we sat down at the table and she's wiping her face off. And all of a sudden we start hearing this growling noise like a big German shepherd is like under the table, the dining room table. And I'm like, you have a dog under there? She's like, no. And we're like looking, and it's like this really loud roar, like this growl noise. I'm like, what the hell? And I stand up and things like start shaking in the corner. And we're like, oh my God, what the hell is going on, dude? We don't even have a camera going or nothing. We're just initially just talking with her. And we're having all this activity going on. It was insane, the amount of stuff that was going on.
Did they get anything on camera, or just didn't have it going?
We were catching these light anomalies, sort of like you had caught at the San Pedro Haunting. These light anomalies happening like during broad daylight, and they would illuminate and move across the room, and it was crazy. Right. It was totally crazy.
Well, that's right, and it's interesting you said about the poltergeist activity in association with a creature or whatever it was with the glowing eyes, because that's exactly also what happened in Point Pleasant. They said that they had a lot of poltergeist types of activity, just the object movement of objects and, shadow people, other things like that, and objects moving themselves. And like you said, strange lights, strange orbs of light and stuff like that. So it's got to have some kind of a connection, some kind of a tie-in to it.
Yeah, it's weird. And I had a lot of cases through the years that were almost similar to the same thing. They seen these black things with red eyes. I had another case in Ephrata, Pennsylvania, where the kid was seeing this black thing with red eyes, and it was changing sizes, like kind of like shift shaping. And the mother thought maybe the kid was having psychological issues. So one night she stayed in his room, and sure enough, she wakes up around 3:00 in the morning to this really foul stench, and it's cold in the room. And as she looks up, there's this figure. She said it almost looked like Bigfoot. But there's this figure that's like 7 foot tall. It's all the way to the ceiling. And she said it's black. It has hair. And it has glowing red eyes. And it's staring down at her. She said I was so scared that she couldn't move. And she said it disappeared. But as it was slowly disappearing, like just like losing its its abilities, and it just kind of just started evaporating into nothing. She said the last thing that went away was the eyes, these glowing red eyes. It was the last thing that disappeared. And I did capture this black stuff on video for like approximately 15 minutes, appearing and disappearing, kind of like creating itself. And then it would just dissipate into nothing. It would move across the room, like grow real small. And it was going to a closet area. It was coming in and out of a closet, back across the room, it's amazing. Best video I've ever caught for paranormal wise.
That's a video you actually caught on your video camera then.
Yeah, I caught it on a DVR system. Yeah.
Wow. Yep. It's interesting, John, you mentioned it. Have you been watching any of this series? I think it's on the Travel Channel. I saw a few of the episodes. Expedition Bigfoot or something.
Yes.
It was a sighting they had of a tall creature. They've been looking for the Bigfoot thing. I forget. I don't think it was Northern California. I forget where it was. I think the last episode I saw, they were in Northern California, but they were finding some interesting things. But there was, I don't know, I'm not sure where it was, but they were in some remote area, and I think it was on an IR camera. I don't know if it's thermal vision. I think it was IR, as I recall. They spotted a really tall creature, and they got it on camera. Is what you said. It just looked like it dissolved like a lemon drop, dissolving away into nothing, like just disintegrating. And that was interesting to me. It tells you, it was like, what is Bigfoot? What is that whole thing about? So
Yeah. I mean, I know when I had seen these light anomalies as we were there. She had told me she had seen this the Bigfoot looking thing, and she's seen it look like a kid. All these different things, and like she's seen it as a mist too, like this black mist in her bedroom. So I said, well, where are you seeing it? She's like, it comes out of this closet. She said, we can never keep this closet door shut. It always opens on its own. She said, I don't care what time of day it is. She said, if I shut that, I'll come back. It'll be open. So it was open when we were there. She said, I just leave it open because I hate coming up knowing I shut it and it's open. So I said, well, I'm going to stick a camera there. I put a camera all the way to the back of the wall, shooting toward that closet to the doorway. And I'm not kidding you. I walked out of the room. I was out of the room maybe 2 or 3 minutes. I went downstairs to talk with her, and this stuff starts appearing at the closet door. It's nothing, and all of a sudden there's a black mass creating itself, and it blocks out the door jamb. You can't see the door jamb anymore. It's like creating mass, and all of a sudden it just collapses into itself, and it's gone. I'm like, we didn't see it at the time. I didn't even know it was happening because I was downstairs, but we were seeing light anomalies in the kitchen as this is going on. The homeowner, and another investigator seen a ball of light that was green going across the top of the ceiling. Then it turned red and zipped up into the ceiling. Like, I'm just like, whoa, what the hell? I thought I was the only one who seen it. They were like, what was that? I was like, I have no idea what that was. I've never seen anything like that in my life. It was really weird. It was a strange house, and it's just a really weird area where they live. It's part of the cloisters, which was like a cult, like a religious cult. And that's where their house was kind of like built on, was this property that the cloisters owned. It really weird location, and they still live there, and they're still having phenomena. They're still seeing the black thing. I don't know how they live there. I wouldn't.
Still going on now, then.
It's still happening. Yeah, I'm actually set to go back there and investigate, and that was over 12 years ago when that happened.
Wow, that's been like quite a bit of time's gone by then.
Yeah. I actually stay really close friends with all my clients because a lot of the cases that I've done, you see stuff on TV and we had a blessing and we got rid of it. That's all crap, man. Like that's not how it is. You don't get rid of these things. They don't just go away. It just doesn't happen like that. When, somebody just throws a blessing around and it just goes away. It doesn't happen like that.
That's right.
This phenomena is totally unpredictable.
Oh, it really is. It really is. And, my current girlfriend, Melody, I met her on a haunting a few years ago. And she and I have been living together for 2 years now, and the reason I met her is because I was brought in on an investigation, and
Are you
she
still
kind of hit it
paranormal
off.
investigating?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Are you still doing paranormal investigations?
Oh yeah, yeah. I haven't done as much stuff in the field lately. I've been putting together this video this past year, but with Melody, my house is haunted now. It's the entity case. That's why we were investigating her out in Simi Valley. She lived out there in a home, and the remember the movie The Entity that Taff worked on, or he was his case, him and Carrie Gaynor's case, and the woman said she was raped and that kind of
Oh
thing.
yeah, that's a creepy movie.
Yeah, Melody's had those things happen, and I've captured it on infrared camera here, and we've had lights moving around, and you can see the bed sheets pulsing on top of her sometimes.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
and one night he appeared. I mean, when I say he appeared, I mean it's this thing appeared, and she caught it with her cell phone. She's always taking pictures with her cell phone, but she has that live view function, I guess, where it'll take 2 seconds of video with every time she snaps a
Yeah.
flash picture. Um, so one night she goes, "Oh wow, look at this! Oh my God, what is that?" or something, and something lit up the whole part of the front door area right where you go into from the front door to the living room, that area, and on the video I slowed it down to this pink light. It looks like a pink source of energy of some kind. It's got a long tail on it. And then you talk about the smoke. It doesn't like religious music, so we did an experimentation here one night. This is last year, and we tried playing Ave Maria on on the YouTube, off the YouTube on the television set in the living room. And right after we did that, this brownish mist came into the house and wafted around the house. We got a whole thing on infrared camera.
Oh wow. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, and again, lights. Like you mentioned, lights. That's part and parcel to these hauntings. Is that most of the time they generate some kind of light phenomenon,
Yeah,
as
they
in
do.
as, it, as in San Pedro, and it was moving. They moved all around the bedroom, and you know, and then one. I mean, we have a camera set up outside in the driveway. You can see the front of the driveway at night. I live up in a wooded area, and you could see this object come in to view. And I'm not trying to be facetious, but like Casper the Ghost, that whitish kind of. It looked like it had a white head. And it had a body, almost looked like a sheep, but it's not. And but it flew right up past the camera, and that's the only time I think I've seen that particular thing. Although there was one that I picked up out here by the pool area at night. There was another camera out there, and there was a smaller entity or something that showed up on camera, and it looked similar to that, but not quite. But it was similar to that. It could have had a tail too, but it moved pretty fast. I'll have to take a look at that again. But yeah, so stuff's going on here.
That's
so
crazy.
so again, like it follows the lady in the entity door spider, and it's followed Melody, and it's still going on here. Uh, it goes in spurts, but she has stuff will bother her a lot of times at night, almost every night, really. But I'll be sleeping. I have no idea what's going on. I don't feel anything a lot of times. We have filmed the bed sheets moving up, puffing up. I got on 2 camera angles one night. It's not that we film every night, but we have caught a lot of phenomena. But they leave bruises on her and stuff like that. It's just, it is really, it could be borderline demonic or something like that.
Yeah, it's
That's
eerie. It's really eerie.
yeah,
I mean, the lady in Ephrata that scene that where I captured the black
oh yeah,
mist.
oh
Um,
yeah.
she she was attacked. Actually, was thrown down her steps, and I was working out of town, and she has my cell phone, and she called me like frantically, like, John, I just got thrown down the stairs. I mean, she was really freaking out. I'm like, you might want to think about leaving the house, but I don't know if this thing's going to follow you or it's not, because she's had kind of like paranormal things happen her whole life. And
Oh wow.
I said, this stuff, it's like that, like Dr. Taff has said, he's like, these things are connected to an individual. It's not so much a location, it's the individual that's producing the phenomena and is associated, they're associated with the phenomena itself, kind of like they're producing it. And
that's one theory. Yeah, they can sometimes. They definitely do like to attach to people. That's for sure.
yeah, I mean, I like the San Pedro case that you did. I think I've read on there, actually seen that one of your photographers was actually hung in the attic of that place, which was insane.
Yeah. Did you see the? I don't know. Actually, I wrote a book on that. I don't know if you read the book, but I wrote a book on that years ago. And then there was a video I put out years ago. It was on Sci-Fi Channel, and it's called "An Unknown Encounter." A true account of the San Pedro Haunting. It's the same name as the book that I wrote in 2009. It came out. And now Jeff Wheatcraft, have you met him or talked with him yet? No.
I've not. No, I've tried to find where he was, but I couldn't really find him on any social media.
I can hook you up with him. I haven't talked to him for a while, but I'll look up his number. I can text it to you or something.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, he's was working at Disney. He might be retired now. I'm not real sure. He not at Disney Studio. He was out at the theme park, California Adventure. That's like an adjunct to the main theme park, the original theme park. And he was doing some kind of engineering work or something like that. He also did. He was a still photographer when I met him, and I met him out here in California. I had just moved out here. I moved out to Southern California in '86, and I've been living in Denver, working in television news there, and we were working on a short film over at Disney at the Disney Studio. It was with Alan Young, who used to do a show called Mr. Ed about a talking horse. And,
oh yeah, I
had,
remember Mr. Ed.
remember that show?
Oh yeah,
with the guy Alan Young. He just passed away a few years ago. He's a great guy. And then we had Karen Black, who also has passed away. All these people passing away. And
I like all the older shows more than I do the newer shows. I stay up watching old, like Me TV, watching all the old shows.
I'm the same way, and I like stuff like My Favorite Martian and all that.
Oh my God, yeah! I just bought the whole box set of In Search of with Leonard Nimoy.
Oh my God, yeah! Oh my God, I love those shows.
Yeah, the whole set was like $24. I was seeing it on Amazon. I was like, I got to get it. I've been watching it since I got it last week.
Oh yeah, there's a really good episode, and I don't know who they had a really good psychic in one of them. They were in a with Hans Holzer, who wrote a lot of books. He's passed
oh yeah,
on, but,
yep.
And it was in a place in New England. I remember seeing one about I can't think of where I think I want to say it was Maine, somewhere in Maine, but there was a house that was being haunted by a person who I think it was a woman, and they'd see her apparition. There were two young ladies living there, and they see her staring out the window, and she'd dissipate and stuff. And they had a psychic that who Hans Holzer had brought in, and she was really nailing it. She was coming up with information just like she was almost talking to it, communicating with it on a telepathic level of some kind. And they checked out all this information. She said, well, it was a person whose husband went to sea and he was lost at sea, and it was his wife, and she put names together and places and dates and names of ships, and it all panned out when they did the historical research. But if you see that one, I think you'll enjoy it. It was definitely In Search of.
Oh, I
I think
love
it
that
was
show.
In Search of Ghosts. I think one of the episodes, In Search of Ghosts. I think is one of that. Sometimes they would run several different episodes and stuff, but yeah, but I thought that was a great show.
Yeah, oh,
And
definitely. So in the San Pedro case, did that stuff that stuff followed you guys to your home, right?
Yes, yeah, okay. So so Jeff and I had met on that movie set, as I said, Platinum Blonde, and then we became friends. And I had a production company, and small production company, worked out of my home, and I lived in Studio City at that time on Tahunga Avenue, and so Taff had called me. I had worked with Taff on a couple things, and not too much had happened really on a couple of cases. I had always took my video camera with me, and if, being in the television business, I had a fairly good big size camera at the time, and Jeff uh, was a total skeptic, and I asked Jeff if he wanted to go out to the San Pedro house that Barry Taff had talked to me about, and he had gotten a call from a lady named Susan Castaneda, and Susan was a neighbor friend of Jackie, a lady named Jackie Hernandez, who was living in a little bungalow down there on 11th Street. It was 593 West 11th Street in San Pedro, and there were two twin bungalows. Then, if somebody's looking for that address, they may not even see it today, because if you go down there, um, there's another house in front of it, and these two twin bungalows sit behind this this other person's house. And at the time, it was a guy named Michael Cooper who was the landlord, and he's not there anymore. It's another owner now named Jesse Segala, and I think he said there's not a whole lot of last time I talked to him, wasn't a whole lot of activity going on now, because he still rents the house. I doubt if he even tells people that it's haunted.
Now I wonder if you had brought maybe yourself or Jeff back to that location, would that activity pick back up or something like that?
That's a good question. I thought about doing that, but the thing is, um, okay, he was a huge skeptic going into the case, and the after the hanging incident happened, and you know all about that,
Oh
and
yeah,
that's where he got hanged up in the attic, not killed, but another guy got him down. Gary Bame pulled him down. He never stepped foot back in that house again.
really?
Uh-huh. He never
Wow.
stepped down. Now he did go up to Weldon. When you said that the entity followed her, it did. It followed her up to Weldon. She moved up there. She had a temporary, transitory, I should say, reconciliation with her ex-husband Al, who since passed away, and his name was Al Hernandez, and they used to go fishing, hiking and stuff up in an area called I think it's up in the Lake Isabella area. It's up near Bakersfield. So um, he got her up there into a trailer home, and about 5 months, well, before that, they broke up again. They had an argument. He left, and then she said she saw smoke come out of his head. He got real angry, almost like something was possessing him. And then he left, and then she called me, and other people were calling me, or they were on the phone when she was talking to me, I believe. And they said they had seen the apparition of an old man appear in a widescreen TV set that was unplugged. They were moving it into a storage shed. So I asked Jeff if he would accompany me back up there. Now
You
this
mean they
is,
seen it in the screen?
it was in a, she had someone had given her an old widescreen television set in 1990, I guess it was, or late '89, and they were moving it into a storage shed behind her property there, behind
Jesus.
the trailer home. And this was in broad daylight. There was a guy named Jim Silcott, who's since passed on, um, and his wife. I can't think of her name, or Janice. I think her name was Janice Silcott. They saw this image, kind of the same thing that Jackie had described in the original house in San Pedro. She said she saw a desiccated looking old man that would sit on the bunk bed in a children's bedroom. And then she also saw that entity sitting at a kitchen table chair in the little kitchen. And she had a day bed, off right off of the kitchen in the dining room area. And she said it lingered there before it disappeared for about 5 minutes or so.
Wow.
And just stared at her, and it looked like a corpse, looked like a living corpse.
Oh my
Looked at her.
God.
Yeah, pretty scary stuff. Well, like I said, Jeff was very skeptical the first night when he went down there. Well, when both of us went down there was August 8th, 89. And we went in, and Taft met us down there, and he had a friend of his there named Larry Brooks. And so Jeff and I went down and we checked it out. But again, I'll never forget, Jeff was so skeptical. He went along because I asked him, I said, well, you know, you're a really good still photographer. Maybe you can catch something. He goes, yeah, right, because I don't buy any of this stuff. So, you know, he was so skeptical. And so they, she had told us, Jackie told us that she has also seen another second apparition of a disembodied head in the attic crawl space. And this is August 8th, 89, like I mentioned. And so we talked to her, and her girlfriend Susan was there, and she had seen a lamp fly off a table, kind of typical poltergeist type stuff. And Chrissy Zivkovic had seen things and heard noises in the attic. And Jackie had at one time had stuck her head up there, you know, just peered into the crawl space because someone found money in their attic. She was telling me about it. And so she said, oh, maybe there's money up in my attic. Somebody left
Yeah.
it.
Good luck with that.
Instead of money, she saw a disembodied head floated towards her, you know, and it was a rather large looking head, like very corpulent features. She sort of like, it reminds you of like an Alfred Hitchcock, you know, image or something.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of a face, you know, and it disappeared. But she screamed, and you know, she wasn't able to move. She had you know, she was separated from her husband at the time, and she had two small children. She had a baby girl, and she had a little boy, 3. And so Jeff and I went down there, and we met with Taff, and we talked with her. And then Jeff went up to the attic because I asked him to just check it out. And he did. He went up there, and it was about maybe 10:30 at night, and at that point I hadn't even brought in video equipment yet because I thought, well, you know, it seemed very quiet. You know, as you know, not always does anything happen. So I thought, well, if anything does happen, then I'll bring a camera in. Well, boy, did it happen. So Jeff went up in the attic first, and he crawled up there, and he was taking some photos, thinking we thought, well, maybe I can pick up something with this Canon 35 millimeter, and so I think he came down. He took a few shots, and he came down, and he said that he felt a little queasy up there. I said, "What do you mean by that?" He goes, "Oh," he says, "You know, it's like as if something were lurking behind me. I felt like I was being watched." He says, "I guess all these stories are getting to me. You know, all the stories he's hearing about ghosts and stuff."
Yeah. Kind of wigging him out a little bit.
Yeah, he's a little freaked out psychologically, I think. So I think Larry Brooks asked him, "Well, where did you feel like you're being watched?" He says, "Like there's something behind me, you know." So he went back up. Larry says, "Why don't you go up and take a few pictures over your shoulder, you know?" So he went back up, and he obliged us, and he went up and he was taking a few pictures. He was into his third frame shot, you know, and he was squeezing off the trigger. And at that point, something grabbed the camera out of his hands.
Oh, wow.
And he let out a scream or a shout or something, or a groan. And he comes bolting down from the attic crawl space, and he said something. You know, his hands were outstretched, he's shaking like a leaf, and all the color had gone out of his skin. He was looking pale as a ghost itself, you know.
Yeah.
And he said, we asked him what happened. He says, "Oh my God!" He said, "Something just the camera just pulled out of my hands." I said, "Well, did you feel anybody brush up against you?" He said, "No, no." He says, "The camera just jerked out of my hands." I remember that's what he said. So I said, "Well, hang on." I went out, got my camera and my video. It was an Ikigami 730 camera and a 3-tube camera back then. It's not really good in low light, but you can gain it up. It's noisy, not like the chip cameras we have today. They're really good today. But he went up. I went up. He went up. He found the body of the camera lying face down in a little crate up there. It was on the other side of the attic. We hadn't even been all the way over across that attic, so we knew he couldn't have him up there, in the dark, but you could still see him from a little bit of the spill light coming from below. And so, he found the lens lying port side up, I believe, behind the trapdoor. He was amazed at that. He put the lens back on the camera. It wasn't damaged. It was just like it hit the button on the camera to unlock the lens. Where you twist the lens on and off. And so
that's kind of a hard thing to do in the dark,
Hard thing to do in the dark, exactly. And then the weird thing, I had a weird thing happen right away. I was rolling as I went up. I had to hand it was kind of a bulky camera. I handed the video camera up. I kept the camera rolling in the hopes that we would catch something. And then I crawled up there. We'd just stand on a washing machine in that laundry room, and I got out a couple milk crates or something. We were able to hoist ourselves into the attic. And then when I got up there, he handed the camera back off to me, and I was rolling. And as I was rolling, I didn't see anything, but the camera suddenly neutralized. It just kicked out, it just shut down. And it's interesting because these were big batteries. They were 14-volt batteries that are put out by Anton Bauer, and they're real professional, expensive batteries. They run the camera for a long time. And I charged up all the batteries. I keep them in a porta brace bag. And so I said, give me another battery. And they handed me up another battery. I think Larry did. And put it back on, and still no response from the camera. It was dead on the doornail. And then I noticed that the little pilot light where you turn the camera on, well, it would always turn on. It would have a little green light, so you know that you were on. And if it was going out, you would get a red flashing pulsing light, but that would pulse for several minutes before it would completely go out. And even I didn't get anything. But when we came down out of the attic, the camera suddenly was back on. And that's how I was able to get footage. I shot footage of, you can hear some scraping sounds, and we heard footsteps and things of that nature once we came down. But when I was coming down, I went down first as we left the attic. I'm looking back at Jeff, and he's coming down face first. I mean, I could see his head, and he's looked like he's got a very perplexed, strained look on his face. And I said, Jeff, what's wrong? And he wouldn't say anything. And as he got all the way down, he looked like he was out of breath. And I said, what's happening? And he said, I couldn't look behind me. I said, why not? He said, because I was afraid to look behind me for what I might see. He said there was something as he came down through the crawl space, pressing in on his back like a large bony hand. That's how he described it.
Ooh.
Pressing on his back.
Good God.
And then my camera came back on, and then I was able to videotape, document what was going on in the. And if you saw that documentary, Unknown Encounter, you probably saw that footage, because you'll see Jeff's reaction. He was pretty brave though, because he was very curious, because he wanted to see what was going on. What had him a little later on. He did stand on the milk crates again and look and peer in. He didn't go back up there, but he was able to get high enough where he could peer back in there. And from the spill light below, he saw what looked like a large black mass moving back and forth, as if you put three human beings under a black tarp or a black sheet or something like that.
Yeah,
And
I've seen them.
Oh yeah,
I've seen them on more than one occasion. Probably, I've seen these black things like 4 times over the years, and they're quite scary if you come real close to one.
like a shadow.
Oh yeah, I ran a place that was a Civil War plantation in Urbana, Maryland, in Frederick, and it's a part of. It was a stronghold for the Confederacy during the Battle of Antietam, the bloodiest day in American history. And
oh yeah, was it near Fredericksburg? Is that Fredericksburg?
It was in Frederick, Maryland, which was
Frederick, Maryland.
Yeah, not far from Antietam. And
oh yeah, you're right. That was the bloodiest day, wasn't it? For number of deaths, I think.
Yeah. And this place was insanely haunted. I mean, a lot of intelligent haunting going on in there. Like one night, I used to just walk. I ran that place for the owner probably like 7 years. I would do just tours of the place and stuff like that, and
Right.
do the history of the soldiers that stayed there. I mean,
Oh,
Jeb
yeah.
Stewart. Jeb Stewart was there. Almost every famous Confederate general was at the Landon House, and it's called the Landon House. And beautiful place. I mean, gorgeous. Everything's original to the time inside. It's an awesome place, but extremely haunted. Nothing really
Oh,
bad, but it liked to interact with you, and it would talk. You would hear disembodied voices and light
yeah.
anomalies, shadow figures. And the first time I ever seen a shadow figure was there. I was doing a tour with some people late at night, and everybody had left. I was the last one there, closing up, and I was made sure I was the last one because I was responsible for locking up.
Oh,
So
yeah.
everybody was gone. It's around 4 in the morning, and I'm just sitting there getting my stuff together, and go to lock the last door, and I step out on the porch, and there's a shadow figure. It's looking in a window, one of the
Oh,
windows on the front porch, and I'm like looking at this thing, and it's maybe only 15 feet away.
wow.
And I'm like looking at it, and I kind of made an advance, like move my foot on the deck of the porch, and the porch creaked and it turned and it looked at me. It didn't have any
Wow.
facial features. It was just black, like blacker than the night.
Sure.
And it scared the hell out of me. I know I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I went running right at it." Bullshit. You wouldn't have been running at it because it scared the hell out of
Oh,
me.
oh,
I'm like,
absolutely.
I'm just
Oh,
standing
my
there like,
God.
what is getting ready to happen? Like this thing's looking at me, I'm looking at it, and it went the other way. It just took off really fast, like phew, the other way, and left like a residual smoke, I want to say, like a
Yeah.
cloud almost, and it was
Sure.
just dissipated into nothing. It was gone, and I was
Did you
just
say did you pick up some footage of that? You said a little bit or not?
no, I didn't. I didn't have anything. I was wrapping up for the end of the night. I was just going home. It was like 4 in the morning,
Yeah.
and it was just, I was amazed. I was like, I can't believe I
Yeah.
just seen that. Like, did I really just see that? Like, it was amazing. I
Oh,
just
my God.
couldn't explain it. I'm like, wow.
That would make sense. If any place should be haunted, it would be like Gettysburg and Antietam battlefield.
Oh my God, this place was insanely haunted. I mean, I used to walk through there and just whistle Dixie just to see if I would get a response because it was a Confederate, stronghold. And sure enough, one night I was whistling Dixie, and I hear a response from the other end of the mansion. And I'm
Oh,
like,
my
what
God.
the hell was that? I was the only one in there. And I was like,
Oh,
what the hell was that? There's somebody whistled back.
well, that
Luckily,
was
I
very
had
interesting.
luckily I had recording devices out. I had them out stationed out throughout the place. And I said, man, I had a recorder down there. I know I captured that. So I
Yeah.
went home and I'm listening to it. And there's the whistle. I hear it. And it's this whistle. It's not Dixie. It's someone else whistling a tune. And I marked that tune in my head. I said, when I go back there, I'm going to whistle that tune and I'm going to see what happens. And I'm
Yeah.
not kidding you, Barry. I whistled that tune, and in the next room over, it whistled it back. And I captured it on a recording. I'm like,
Oh,
oh my God, dude. It's like, I said, maybe it's an echo because the place is huge. So I'm like whistling
yeah.
different stuff to see if I get an echo return. Nothing. I whistle that tune again. It whistles it back. I'm like, oh my God, this is insane. I've never had anything interacting with me like that. Like,
That was interacting with you for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
it liked that tune, just that tune. It would only whistle that tune. And I have it on 3 or 4 different recordings of me whistling it and it whistling it back right in return. Unbelievable.
It'd be interesting to find out what that tune was. Was it some tune that maybe somebody would recognize, Or
I had tried to get into like old music and try to listen to what that tune was, but I could never find what it was. It was just like
yeah.
it was like a tune like that was the tune. It
Wow.
it loved that tune. I'll never get that tune out of my head ever because it loved that tune.
Hang on to that recording.
Oh, I have it. I have like several. It did it in front of a lot of people too. Like I had like 6 or 7 people with me one night, and I whistled it, and it did it right behind me on the stairwell. And they
Oh
were
my
like,
God.
"Oh my God!" Everybody's like, "Oh my God!" We were just, it was, they were like blown away. You know, I mean, when you have something like that happens, you know, it's just an amazing thing that you're hearing a voice
Yeah.
come out of nowhere.
Yeah. I was thinking, did you ever watch the show My Ghost Story?
Oh yeah,
I was one of the co-creators of that show.
I
And I
was
did
gonna, I was gonna come on that show. Actually, Landon House was on My Ghost Story.
Oh, were they really?
Yeah, Kevin Dolan was the owner of Landon House. He was on My Ghost Story.
They made filmed him. So he was on there. They made a film. I was on the road a lot. I did the first two pilots. I was supervising producer on the first two pilots, and then I was out shooting uh, episodes for them for the first season, and I I don't know that those shows are now on Roku. If you get Roku stick, use a Roku stick
Yeah, yeah.
or TV, you can watch all those shows. And but the first two pilots that we did, which really is what sold they aired, and that's what sold the series. I don't think they're on that series. We had the San Pedro case on the first one, I think, and
I love the whole set of it with the chair, and that was just cool.
yeah, I lit that background. I did a lot of the camera work. I did a lot of the studio stuff, but then again, I was on the road too, shooting for 3 months. But there was a Gettysburg case, and I was in a place called California City, Pennsylvania, I think.
I've heard of
Somewhere
that.
near, yeah, near Pittsburgh, I think. A
Yeah,
guy picked up his mother's spirit floating down the hallway or something. But there was a guy, and I feel bad. I don't remember the guy's name. I know he's passed on. Really super nice guy. He was at Gettysburg with his family, with his wife, and I believe maybe his daughter. I don't think it was a big family, just a daughter, I think. But they were there at dusk, and I don't know what section of Gettysburg they were at, but obviously there were battles all over the place going on. And he's got, I don't know if you saw that footage, you can see transparent soldiers on horseback.
I know exactly where that's at. That is in
That are
Triangle Field.
Triangle Field. I think that's it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
You can
actually
see that.
seen something exactly like that, Barry, in Triangle Field with another investigator.
That must be a hot spot for
It
somebody.
is. There's a
Yeah.
stone wall there, and we seen something white go over that stone wall, and we were like,
Really?
"What in
Oh,
the
wow.
hell was that?" It was a brief second, but we were like, "What the hell was that?" And we were like, "I was like, you seen that?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "It was white, right?" He's like, "Yeah." And it was in the fall, and all the
Yeah.
leaves had fell off the trees, and you could hear the squirrels running through, but there was no noise. It was
Yeah.
dead silent. We
Well,
were. It was
that's
creepy.
if any place is gonna be haunted, that's another one. That place, like you mentioned, Antietam, that would fill the bill.
Oh my God, Gettysburg. That's where I first started doing paranormal investigations. Was Gettysburg on the battlefield, and
I
we
gave
captured some stuff on the battlefield. Pretty awesome place.
I gave a talk there once about 11 years ago, and it was I think the most people I've ever run into. I forget it was some kind of paracon there.
Phenomenology.
But yes, were you there at that
Yes.
event?
Yes.
Well, I
Yep.
was there. I want to say 2010 or 11.
Yep. I was there.
I gave a talk with I think Barry Taff was there.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I talked to Dr. Taft there when that's when his book was coming out. Aliens Above, Ghosts Below.
Yeah, yes, and I think this is 2011. Yeah, I would have had my book there probably. There was a place where I was signing books. I think that
Yeah,
was
it's
cool.
in the convention room right there where everybody had the tables set up.
Yeah, I was right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I sat there and talked to Dr. Taft for like 2 hours about the entity case because I was like, as a kid, I seen the entity movie, and that was
Yeah,
like really fascinating to me as a kid. Why that was actually one of the creepiest movies I've ever watched in my life. Uh,
yeah.
Besides The Exorcist, that was top two. You know,
Oh yeah, The Exorcist is one of my all-time favorites. We know the entity case. When I produced a documentary. It was on Sci-Fi Channel. It aired in 2003, and it was called California's Most Haunted. And I did a whole segment about with that Taff and about the entity case, and I got to interview uh, Frank De Felita, who wrote the book.
Where's the book? Yeah.
And Frank, Frank's passed away now. But he was a director too. He had directed some horror films. I think he did one about a Dark Night of the Scarecrow. Does that ring a bell? He did Dark Night of the Scarecrow.
Yes.
Yeah, Frank was a really talented guy. He lived into his later years, and he was, obviously, I believe he wrote the screenplay too for the movie. And Taff and Carrie Gaynor were consultants on the film, and two of the characters, Gene Kraft, I believe, is the guy's name in the film.
Yes, yep.
They changed Taft's name to Kraft. Yeah, the other guy was Carrie Gaynor. I think Carrie Gaynor is still around, but Frank was a really wonderfully talented writer. I thought the book.
But you guys had like a screenplay written of the San Pedro Haunting, right? I think they were trying to make that into a movie at one time, right?
Well, there was a person that did write a screenplay on it, but I don't think it ever went anywhere. I wasn't involved with it. But just recently, I was contacted by a gentleman from Spain just this past few days. There's a company in Spain. It's called Dynamo Films. They're interested in doing I don't know if it's a film or a series they're talking about doing about that.
That would be awesome.
On my list of people to contact tomorrow to do follow up on that. But so there might be something coming down the pike. Yeah, for sure.
That would be awesome because that's a hell of a case. I mean, it's one of the most documented cases of highly active poltergeist activity. You know, it was that case.
Yeah, thank you. It was definitely a watermark case. To have, like you had mentioned about being followed. Yeah, I was followed by it, and we had all those things happen in an apartment I had at that time in Studio City, and Jackie was followed 3 or 4 times, and when this was all going on, that she didn't really. I think she was just scared, and she didn't think to take pictures. And I said, well, I can't be down here all the time, and so nor could Taff, and so I said, I'm going to buy you a little point and shoot camera, and she got pictures in the kitchen one night, August 28th. 89. There's do you remember those little cloud-like things? It looked like one of them looked like it's splitting apart, like a cell would divide.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, up I just see it. Well, she got those pictures with a flash camera, and then the third time she had moved, she got a few things up in Weldon, but she moved back to San Pedro, always trying to get away from this thing. And when she went back, she got an apartment, and I picked up. She was sitting on the floor in broad daylight. There was a psychic lady there named Noni Fagat, and I was filming her, and she would always tell me, it's here. I know it's here. And I didn't see anything, but when we look back on the video, I got a shot of lights, there was I call it a pea pod light. It's like 3 little pea pods, but they're white, and this object flies into my frame and dissipates for a frame, or dissipates for a fraction of a frame. It just, it just disappeared, then reappears. I guess in the next frame is what it would have been, yeah. And then you can see it traverse across the screen out of frame. And then she got pictures with that little point and shoot camera at dawn one morning in, I believe it was in, I think it was in July or something of 1990, I believe. And she got these lights above the floor. They looked like grapefruits, and they were. She took a couple with a flash, and then the flash didn't work, and then she got these big glowing lights, and they're projecting light onto the carpet, but not against the back wall, which is really odd. Because as much light as they were generating, it should have affected the back. It was actually not a wall, but it was a white sliding door bedroom closet in her baby's bedroom. So all of that was going on, but there were lights, and then and like I said, Jeff never went back. He did go down. I think he might have gone down to Weldon, but I'm not positive. I have to think back on that. But he never went back to the original house. He was so scared after that. Well, when that hanging happened, Gary had the get him down. And Gary was skeptical. Gary's an old high school buddy of mine from Ohio, and Gary is still around. Gary's back in Hamilton, Ohio, where I'm from originally, and he's still back there. I see him whenever I go back. And he was pretty skeptical when all that happened. But he was very brave too, because he took. Do you remember right after Jeff was hanged? Okay, I'm below the attic. I'm down in the laundry room talking to these ladies, and when we went down there, it was pretty quiet. And they go up and they're looking around, and Jeff wanted to show Gary where the camera had been pulled out of his hands the first night. And then, suddenly, all hell broke loose. We heard a noise, and I heard a three snapping, like 3 finger snaps. Me
Oh
and
my
Jeff.
God. Yeah, that's weird. I've heard that before.
Me and the 2 ladies heard it. Yeah. Yeah, 3 snap. I think it's just something trying to get your attention or scare you or something. And then Jeff,
I've had that. Yeah, I've had that happen before. It's quite alarming.
So you've had the same thing, the snapping fingers thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the first cases I ever did was referred to me as was my brother's girlfriend's mother. She had been smacked by something in the house, an unseen force. And they had just bought this house and they moved out. And they told me the room that it happened in, so I went into that room. The house was empty, no power on, no water, everything was shut off, no furniture in the house. I mean, there was another investigator, and I hear these. I'm like just asking the standard EVP questions. There's somebody in here who wants to communicate or something, something around like that. And I hear this in my ear 3 times, exactly like that. And when that happened, this shoe rack, there was one shoe rack on the door. It lifted up off the door and slammed down behind me. I mean, it scared the hell out of me. I jumped up. I turned around and that thing was swinging on the door, and it was a big shoe rack. I looked at my buddy. I was like, oh my God. I said, I can't believe that just happened. Right? I mean, we were only in there like 5 minutes and this happened,
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
But this snapping noise, we kept hearing it in the house. Like everywhere we went, it's like it followed us, and you hear this. And I'm like, what the hell is this, dude? The snapping noises, man. It's like someone snapping in your ear, like pop, pop, pop. That's so weird. You said that.
Did you catch any of the camera or the audio at all?
And it had an attic, and oh yeah, we did catch it. And we caught this banging in the attic. Don actually went up into the attic, and I was like, man, I don't know if you should go up in the attic, because they were hearing noises too, like furniture was moving around in the attic. And it was one of those ones where you had to pull down the ladder to go up into it. And, we're hearing these loud thumping noises in the attic, and we're like, dude, there's something in the attic. So we pulled the ladder down, and I'm like, I don't know if we should go up in there, man. And I said, well, something happens. What the hell's, I don't know what's going to happen. So this is our first case as a paranormal investigation team. We don't know what the hell we're really doing. We're just doing it, And we go up into the attic, and there's nothing there. There's like a couple paint cans and a little roll of carpet. That's it. It's totally empty. And we set a motion sensor up there, like a doorbell motion sensor, and we leave. Well, as we're leaving, Don sets off the motion sensor, and we didn't hear anything at the time. But when we went back and we started listening, the motion sensor goes off. It's one of those doorbell ones, ding dong, and it goes off. And we hear a woman's voice come through the motion sensor. It says, help me, please help me, through the motion sensor. But we didn't hear it until we got home and listened to it. And we're like, holy shit, that's a woman saying, help me, please help me, through the motion sensor. And he goes, how did we not hear that? I was like, I don't know. But then we were asking it to do things. Can you make a bang up here? And we were down on the first floor, and sure enough, it's boom. Like, can you do it again? And then it's like boom, 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 boom. Like I'm like, what the hell is going on up there? There's nothing there.
Really?
Yeah. It was totally freaky. And Don's like, should we go back up there? I was like, I think we're pushing our luck if we go up there. Like,
you don't want another San Pedro thing.
Yeah. And, we've had so many cases like that with this attic thing. We did a case right outside of Pittsburgh, in Newcastle. The little girl was sleeping in the attic. They had a walk-up attic. And it's just so weird, the things that you're saying with the San Pedro. This girl seen a white face above hers in the attic.
Yeah.
Over top of hers while she was sleeping. She woke up and there's a white glowing face above hers, and she was so scared that she ran out of the attic, ran down the stairs, knocked the TV over in her parents' room, and we went back and we investigated that case, and we captured some really disturbing stuff.
Yeah.
We
Wow.
we were they had a Ouija board in the house, and they said they used it. So, as an investigator, I got to look at everything, what's going on. Where's the Ouija board? I look at the Ouija board, and we're looking at it. Now, the family members are gone. We have the house to ourselves. And as we're looking at it, there's stuff going on the second floor that we don't know what's going on, but our camera's catching it. And
wow.
This man's voice talks into the video camera, and it says, "I'll kill his kids." It says, "I'll kill his kids," into the recorder, into the camera. And the camera's not picking up anything visual, but it's capturing audio. And we captured it on 3 different devices in that hallway. And I'm like, we didn't hear anything until we went home and we started reviewing. And we're like, oh my God, there's a man. My buddy calls me. He's like, dude, there's a man's voice in the camera saying, "I'll kill his kids." And there was only 3 of us in the house. And we were on the first floor, and it's catching it on the second floor. And, I tell the client, I'm like, we captured a voice in your house saying something's going to kill your kids. And I said, you might want to think about maybe moving. And the husband's a big guy, probably about 6'3", 6'4", real big guy. And he's like, I ain't worried about no goddamn ghosts, man. Nothing's going to happen to me or my kids. So I said, okay, I'm just letting you know what we caught. We did catch something that was kind of disturbing. I've never had, something saying it was going to kill somebody's kids, and it's kind of creepy, And
they get very malicious.
Yeah, 2 months later, I get a call from her, the mother. They find the daughter dead in the attic, and she's only 14 years old, and I was totally disturbed by the whole thing. I mean, it was
14 years old.
She was 14 years old, and they find her dead in the attic from a apparent heart attack.
Oh.
And I'm just like, this is not a coincidence. There's no way this is a coincidence. We get a voice saying it's going to kill his kids, and she dies 2 months later. And we went back they wanted us to come back, so we went back again. And I have a guy in my group, he's a total skeptic. I mean, a ghost would have to literally dance on his head for him to believe it's a ghost. But, we take him in there. He's kind of like, what your friends were. He's a total skeptic. And
like what Jeff used to be.
Yeah. Well, this thing happened to him. Right? We went back a second time, and when we went back, this thing didn't want us there at all. So I'm in the bathroom taking a leak. I got the door shut. This is a pretty kind of private moment. You know what I mean? And I feel this air kind of come up on me. Like someone came in the room, and I turned around, and there's no one there. And I'm like, all right, so I'm just handling my business, And all of a sudden, man, I hear this voice in my ear. Creepiest, scariest voice. If you want to say demonic, and say it was maybe sound like the Exorcist voice, from the movie.
Right.
And it said, there are many, but I am one, in this creepy voice. And I'm telling you what, Barry, I couldn't get out of that bathroom fast enough. My ass jumped down those stairs. I jumped down about 6 stairs, boom, down to the landing, down another 4 steps, out the door I went. I sat out in my car for about 20 minutes. Those guys were still in the house. And they're like, where are you going? I said, I'm going to make a call. Phew, I ran right by them. And I never told them what happened. I didn't tell them because I didn't want to freak them out. So I thought what I did say was, I said, look, wherever you're at in the house, don't be alone. Have somebody with you. And because I don't know what this thing is capable of doing. So I don't want to see anybody get hurt or even that killed by something that we really don't understand. And so
it's just like the hanging thing. I never knew an entity could hang you, but obviously they can. And Jeff was very lucky, because if Gary hadn't been there at that instant to pull that nail down, Because Gary had said on camera that he could have very well choked to death up there.
Oh yeah, and just like that house. I told him don't be alone, and we're sitting there at the DVR system, and I think I was like changing out some batteries, and it was Carl and another investigator were sitting side by side looking at the DVR system, and they both look at each other, and they're like, "What the hell was that?" I'm like, "What?" He was like, "You didn't hear that voice?" I'm like, "I didn't hear anything," but they heard this creepy ass voice in between them. I never told them that I just heard a voice in the bathroom that scared all the hell out of me, and they were just freaked out. And then all of a sudden, Carl's is a pretty big guy. He's about 6 foot, about 280 pounds, 290, and the chair pulls away from the table with him sitting in it. It pulls him back away from the table. Oh my God! He jumped up. His eyes were big as like golf balls. He's like, "Oh my God! I don't believe that just happened." I was like, he goes, "I never thought anything like this could happen before, man." I'm like, "It happened, didn't it?"
Yeah, it got his attention, didn't it?
Made him a believer real quick. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah,
it'll make you a believer.
Yeah, that's the thing with a lot of skeptics. They just haven't had the experience. So it's real easy for them to be skeptical about everything. I always say, you got to keep an open mind about everything.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, just like that San Pedro case. If your friend wouldn't have been there with Jeff, he might not have survived that.
Yeah, I mean, it very, very well may not have. I don't know if you knew this, John, that now Jackie moved out, and you know that, and it followed her and this and that. But did you know that another family moved out of that house?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, 2004. Wow. I was called down. I wasn't doing an investigation. I was called down to that house by the local. I think it's the Pilot newspaper, whatever they call their newspaper. I think it's called the Pilot. And they were doing a story. It was a Halloween seasonal thing. They were doing a story. They heard about the haunting, and they wanted to get my take on it. And they said that we had a family here. Her name was Rosara Luna, like the moon, Luna. It was her. I think she was married. I think she had a couple kids, and they found all their dishes stacked up on the floor one night. They were hearing strange noises in the attic. They wouldn't go in their attic. They did not go in. They refused to go in the attic. I don't know.
Wow.
They were scared to, but they did a lot of weird things. They wound up moving out of the house. I put a picture, I believe, of her in the book that I wrote. It came out in 2009. I believe it's in that book. And then it's interesting because we went up. That's the only time I had returned to the attic because the photographer wanted to go up and get a few pictures of me in the attic. And we went up there, and nothing paranormal happened, but his camera didn't want to work at first. It refused to work. It finally did work, but it didn't want to work for a while, and then suddenly it just started working. We thought that was kind of odd, and I took a few photographs of when I was on the outside of the house. It had been repainted. It's been remodeled a little bit since we were there originally, but and I got see back then I think it was still a film camera when I had pictures developed. You could see streaks of light moving in daylight along the side of the house.
Wow.
Right on the side of the house in the front. So I thought, what's going on? And then when I got back here, I had taken a few shots for the Halloween season. I had some of my Halloween decorations up along the staircase. I just took a few shots. On one of the wide shots, you can see a definite rod of light, glowing light, beam of light moving across. So I must have been followed a little bit that day. So something was still there, had the ability to follow, but it did chase out another family. That was in 2004. So you figure that's about 14 years after Jackie had been there.
Wow. I've had stuff follow me home in investigations that I don't know which investigation it was, but I definitely had something follow me home. It was really eerie too.
I think it's unnerving when it happens because you think you're going out to investigate a haunted house, and that's one thing. But then when they follow you home, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, because now they done invaded your privacy as well, and you're like, "What the hell, man?" I'm laying in bed and like my daughter had spent the night at a friend's house. This is me and my wife and my dog, and sure enough, man, about 1 o'clock in the morning, I always leave my bedroom door shut. and I hear 3 knocks on the bedroom door. Boom, boom, boom. And my wife's like, sits up. She's like, somebody's in the house. I'm like, oh no. I'm
Oh
like,
well.
my dog's growling. The dog heard it. I heard it. My wife heard it. I'm like, oh man, someone's in the house. So the dog is like full alert, hair up on his back. I'm freaking out. I'm like, I got an intruder in the house. I have a firearm, so I'm like, I get my firearm, and I'm like, I might have to use my firearm. If someone's in my house, I'm gonna have to defend my house. So I figure, well, I got the dog. I'm gonna let the dog out. If someone's in here, they're probably gonna shoot him first, and then I'm gonna be able to take them out. So I open the door. Phew, he takes off. He's barking through the house. He's going nuts. He's running all over the place. I clear the whole house. There was no one there. The door was locked. We all heard
Wow.
the knocking, and
Oh
it
my
happened for like about a month straight. I was hearing these 3 knocking on the front door, the back
God.
door, the window. Even on my daughter's room, she was hearing it, and she was freaking out, and it just stopped. My wife had actually seen something in the driveway, seen a figure in the driveway. I have an enclosed trailer that I use for investigations when we stage everything outside in an enclosed trailer. And she said, "You need to get out here." She was coming down the driveway and she seen a man go behind the trailer. And she goes,
Oh wow.
someone went behind the trailer. They're behind the trailer. I haven't taken the lights off the trailer. So my bedroom faces that driveway. So I'm looking out the window to see if I can see who it is. And if there's someone there and I don't see anybody, so I get my firearm and I go outside and I search the area, search the woods. I kind of live in a wooded area too, and in the country. So I'm searching the woods. There's no one there, and I'm like, "There's no one here, babe." And she's like, "I seen a man come from the driveway behind your trailer." And I'm like, "There's no one here." I searched this whole area, and it was a little disturbing. And I'm like, even my daughter had came out of her room a couple of times. She's like, "Dad, there's something in my room." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "It just feels like somebody's watching me. Like
Oh wow.
I'm scared."
Oh
Like,
wow.
yeah, and
That's
she
scary.
actually slept in our room, and she was a teenager.
Oh
She was like,
wow.
"Yeah, there's something in my room. I don't know what it is." She said, "But
Wow.
it's watching me." Yeah, and it's the risk you take doing this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? This is what we do.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I kind of started the podcast.
Yeah.
Because I definitely want people to be educated about these things are out there, and
Oh
can they
yeah.
hurt you? Yeah, they can hurt you. We don't know
Mhm.
the capabilities of what they can do.
Right. We never thought that could happen, but boy, it sure did in the San Pedro case. And so it's out there. I think people have to be very aware that sometimes you may not know what you're getting into. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I mean, when you guys went there, you probably were never expecting something like that to happen.
No, no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, at first, it was amazing enough having the camera, Jeff's camera, pulling out of his hands, and all those things happening like that first night. And it didn't even shut one of our lights. It shut. I mean, the light in the house, all the lights in the house went off and on when I was doing the interview with Jackie the first night. I shot a quickie interview before we left, and all the lights went off and went on. No explanation for that. There was nothing draining any power really, and no, but we didn't know what it would, escalate into. But it seems that when we invaded the crawl space of the attic, when we went up, when Jeff went up there that first night, it was almost like we had opened Pandora's box or something like that.
Did you guys get any like foul stench smells, like death kind of
Oh,
smell?
oh yeah. I don't know if Jeff smelled it so much, but when we were up in the attic the first night, I smelled something kind of foul smelling, almost like decaying flesh,
Yeah,
with
I've smelt that before too.
yeah, like that. And that's when I told Jeff, I said, I think maybe we should get out of the attic or leave the attic,
Yeah, hell yeah.
And so we were, and that's when, I went down first and he's coming down. That's when he was pushed by the large bony hand part on the back, that incident.
It's just so
So,
weird. Like some of the stuff that you've experienced, I've experienced the same kind of stuff. Like you said, you read stuff out of the Bible, and the thing didn't like things being read out of the Bible. Well, we had a case like that too. where
Yeah.
the owner said that he's seen this figure talking to his daughter at the end of the bed. She was talking to it, and it was a
Oh,
black figure, this tall black figure. And he was kind of a religious person, so he said his daughter was acting really weird. And he started reading inserts from the Bible, Psalms out of the Bible. And he said this
right.
foul stench came upon the room. And he said it smelled like death and kind of feces mixed. And as an investigator, you always take everything with a grain of salt because you do get some really whacked out people that are totally some of them are crazy.
Yeah.
They're having
Yeah.
psychological issues, and they're saying their house is haunted, they're going to get killed, and I mean I've seen it all. People saying they were
Yeah.
possessed, and I mean, oh my god, it's
Yeah.
been a whirlwind.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so we were investigating, and I heard a disembodied voice say something like, we were a nuisance." It was like, "You're a nuisance, right?" And I'm like, "Did you guys hear a voice?" And they're like, "No, I didn't hear anything." I'm like, "Thought I heard something say like we're a nuisance or something," and I did catch it on the recording. And right after that, I was like, "Well, Diana, why don't you read some inserts out of the Bible or Psalms like this man's doing, and see if we get this foul smell." And
Right.
she reads some inserts from Psalms, and two of the investigators smell it. Now I'm only maybe 4 feet away. I don't smell anything, but they're smelling it, and they're like, "Dude, that is horrible. What is that?" And I'm like, "I don't smell anything," and they're like, "You don't smell anything over there." I'm like, "I don't smell anything,"
Huh.
and they're like, "It's gone. It's gone. As quick as it came, it was gone." So maybe like
That's
20
terrible.
minutes goes by. I said, "Just read another insert." She reads another one. This time it happens to me, and this smell comes right in my. It's really pungent, like death.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
death and like a feces smell. It was terrible. I was like, "Oh my god, what in the hell is that?" And I've only smelt that only one time over 20 years of investigating, and it was in that place. And
That's
never smelt it
really,
again anywhere else but there.
but just
And
that one point.
it's a really foul stench, like someone's dead.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
gross.
Yeah. It really is gross. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things that can happen during a haunting, but the fact that they can follow you probably was the most, intimidating thing.
Yeah, I mean, how can you fight something you can't really see?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Exactly. And like I said, Jeff was a total skeptic. I'm going to have to put you in touch with Jeff.
yeah, I'd
And,
definitely love to talk to him about it. Is he still up
and
there up there talking about it?
I'm sure he would. He's in the West Covina area. Uh, you know what? Email me. You have my email, right?
Yes.
Email address. Email me, and I will get his information. Also, another guy, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to talk, is Gary Bame, who pulled Jeff down out of the attic, off that nail, bent that nail down to get him off of that nail.
Oh, I'd definitely love to talk to him. Yeah, I love the story. The whole thing was just amazing. I've never experienced anything of that nature.
Right.
Um, in 20 years of, I mean, you see stuff like the Warrens with their Conjuring movies and stuff. I mean, that's like just movies. It's a movie.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, I've
Exactly.
never been in a case where the house is totally erupted and things are flying around, and I'd love to see that, but I've yet
Well,
to see that kind of thing.
no, I have not seen anything like that either. It's mostly, well, I have to base it on the San Pedro was the most prolific case. It was kind of like, um, things would happen when you least expect them. It
Yeah,
wasn't like, things flying around like that's something out of a movie or something like that. It was, I mean, nonstop. It was just things that, like when the hanging happened, we didn't expect that.
yeah.
When the thing was pulled out of his hands, we didn't expect that.
But he's also had some kind of like plasma or something that was like dripping out of the cabinets and stuff, right?
Oh yeah. Before we go, that was the okay. That was the okay. That was just before the hanging incident. That was, I want to say that was late August, like around the 28th or 29th, something like that. And actually, by this time, Taff had told some people about it, and they had brought down a guy from San Diego who had some kind of an infrared camera set up. I forget what it was called, Kohu camera or something. That's what they called it. He could shoot in dark, and then they had been there, and I think There was a couple of guys that were friends of mine. They did movies. They did I can't remember the name now. It's been so long since I've talked to them, but they did a movie called Critters. They did effects for the movie Critters and Killer Clowns and all that. So they were effects guys. And they went up in the attic and spent some time. Nothing happened. So finally, everybody just kind of left, except it was just me. I think Gary. I'm sorry. No, I don't think Gary. I don't think Gary. Jeff was there that night. Yeah, Gary wasn't there that night. And there was a guy named Bob Moss who was a friend of mine. He worked in lighting, did lighting for productions we worked on. And this liquid ooze started dribbling down out of the what do you call it? It's like a little nook there,
A
right?
curio cabinet kind of thing.
Yeah. And it was coming out of this little nook, and it seemed to materialize out of nowhere. And it was like the walls, where the cupboard was sweating, this open thing. And they took it. I guess they got a sample of it. Taft took it to a lab at UCLA, I believe it was, and somebody did an analysis on it. The only bad thing was that they wouldn't go on camera because they didn't. They did it kind of on the QT. They probably could have gotten in trouble. They didn't want to be tied to anything paranormal, but they did do an analysis for Taft, and it came back that it was human blood plasma
Wow.
with a heavy copper and iodine content. Now that's
Holy crap.
interesting, but the iodine was intriguing to me because the first night we were in there, when we went to the house, August 8, 89, in that back laundry room where you go into the attic crawl space, that's what we smelled. We smelled the odor of iodine. And it's interesting because iodine is a byproduct of kelp that comes from the ocean.
Yeah.
And of course, the house had been lived in by a lot of, wayward seamen over the years. And there was a guy named John Damon that could have been one of the spirits that lived in the house at one time. He died in the house, I heard.
Wow.
And so there's all these different little things that led to the sea, especially the fact that the cord this, by the way, it was an old weathered clothesline cord that hung Jeff Wheatcraft that came out of nowhere. That cord was not up there before when we investigated, and it attached itself around his neck very tightly, and it was weathered. It was old. It could have been up. It looked like it was something, an old clothesline from 50 years ago, but it was, pliable enough that it could hang a guy. But that was tied in a very specific knot. Now, none of us, I didn't know anything about knots. I don't think Jeff knew much about knots. And I took it to an old seaman named Luke Coolgis, who lived in San Pedro. And I think he was on the original documentary I did. I'm sure he's passed away by now because he'd be well over 100. But that was a bowline knot. That was a traditional longshoreman knot. They used it on hundreds of ships and stuff like that.
They still use that knot.
They probably still use it. It's a non-slip knot, they call it, I think.
Yep, that's a seaman's knot.
Seaman's knot. And that, what is that doing there? Of course, it was a place where many seamen lived, but where that rope came from, I don't know. That rope also, that cord, disappeared. I kept that cord, and I had it in the apartment, in a drawer in the kitchen, and I wouldn't have thrown it away by any means. And one night, it was the night after we had taken a voice stress analysis test on camera, in which we all passed. That's a form of lie detector test. Only they measure. They do audio recordings. They measure the micro tremblers in your voice, and they can tell whether you're telling the truth. It's like a polygraph, but it's done with sound. And we all passed that. And Jackie had come over to the apartment, and I think it was Jeff, Jeff, and Jackie. I guess that was us three. We'd gone, and we came back to the apartment after we'd gone to get something to eat, and they were going to get their cars and leave. And when we came back to the apartment, the back door started opening and closing, and it was deadbolted from the inside.
Oh my God!
We'd walk out of the room, and you hear a noise, and you walk back in the kitchen, it would be open. At one point, it took a chair and put it on top of the kitchen table.
Holy crap!
Kitchen chairs, and I didn't notice it till like the next day or so. I looked for the cord. I think somebody asked me if they want to take some pictures. I have video of the cord. We have some photos, but but that cord was gone. It's almost like the entity came back to reclaim that thing.
Wow.
That reason,
Wow.
I don't know.
That's
I don't know why.
creepy.
It took the evidence.
That is creepy.
Yeah, so that was the other weird thing. Yeah, it was very, very strange. So,
Oh my God. Wow.
well, John, it's been great talking to you, man.
Yes,
And
sir, man. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. And
yeah,
you ever
you're
get
welcome.
out this way and you want to do
Yeah,
some paranormal stuff, let me know because I'll always have stuff going on.
yeah, definitely. And listen, if you get any really good evidence on camera, I'm always, feel free to send me some clips or something like that.
I'll send you that video of that stuff I caught in Ephrata, that black mass.
I would love to see it. I would love to see it. Yeah, yeah, send
It's
it to
pretty
me.
awesome.
But give me
It's grainy because the camera system kind of sucked back then, but
yeah, I know.
they're nothing like now. But
Yeah, yeah. But I'll get you. You send me an email. I'll get you their information. I'll get Jeff and Gary. I'm sure Jeff and Gary Bain is the guy's name. He was back now. He's a pilot now. He runs a real estate company, and I'm sure Gary could put some more input into that story, give you another perspective on it from maybe something I didn't think about. Because I mean, there were so many things that happened during that case, but you did cover the gist of them there. And if any other questions, we'll do another show again. So.
oh yeah, I mean, if you ever you have some more paranormal stuff you want to talk about, I'm definitely down for it because I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, John. It was great talking to you. And let's talk again soon. And I'll get you that information. Just shoot me an email. I'll be more than happy to.
Oh, awesome, Barry. Awesome. I appreciate everything, man. And you have a great weekend. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
You too, John. You too. And it was a pleasure from our end too. So I hope to talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, John.
All right, Barry. Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye bye now.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Well, folks, that was Barry Conrad. That was awesome, man. That guy. Wow. I can't believe I talked to Barry Conrad. I've followed him for years. The guy's a famous videographer, paranormal investigator. And you just heard the man talking about the San Pedro haunting. Super cool, man. That was a stellar interview. I loved it. Loved it. And you heard him. He's going to hook me up with Jeff Wheatcraft, the man that was actually hung by this unseen force in the attic, and the other investigator that got him down. So we're going to have them on. So stay tuned. We're going to have these guys on talking more about the San Pedro haunting, which is freaking awesome. I'm so happy that I finally talked to him and made a good friend also. So I'm very, very happy. And thank you guys for tuning into the Paranormal Journal. Like it, love it, share it. Follow me on Podbean. You get all the latest updates and when I go live, when the show next episode airs, and definitely share out the love about the Paranormal Journal because we're gonna have more great guests like this on the show, and these guys are a pioneer in paranormal investigations, and I love it. I just love it. I love doing this, and I love getting this information out to you people out there. So thank you guys. Have a great night, great weekend. I'm out. See you next time.